If you are thinking about a trip to Canyonlands National Park, you have come to the right place, my friend. I am so excited to walk you through all the things you need to know as a first-time visitor to help you make those big decisions as to where to stay and what to do and, what to expect. We're going to talk you through all of that today. So I am so excited that you're hoping to visit Canyonlands. Let's jump in. My name is Ash, and I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes. I'm also a Utah native, so you will find me in the Utah parks all the time. Canyonlands is my husband's favorite Utah park, and so we always find excuses to go back to this park. We are there all the time exploring and just really jumping into what makes Canyonlands so special. This is a unique park, so I want to kind of talk you through why you even need this video. You might be going to Arches. You're probably going to Arches. Most people will plan their trip to Arches first and then kind of come to Canyonlands as a little bit more of an afterthought, saying, oh, well, we might as well visit Canyonlands while we're here. And that's perfectly normal. That's what most people do. But what makes Canyonlands worth its own trip and its own few days set aside for this national park specifically is that this national park is the most wild and rugged national park in Utah. It is so cool. You get a totally different feeling here than you do in the other Utah parks because it's just so raw. While you're here, you're watching Mother Nature at work, you're feeling the breeze in your hair, you're feeling like you're on an adventure pretty much the whole time. And so that's what makes Canyonlands so special to us. And I'm excited to talk you through the different things you'll want to think about as you devote some of your time to Canyonlands. Okay, so as an overview to the park, Canyonlands National Park is about 340,000 acres. This makes it the biggest national park in Utah. So there's so much to explore, but a lot of that acreage really is inaccessible or very hard to get to. You need to have some special skills in off-roading. You need to hike for miles and miles and miles. And that's what makes it so cool. It really is a fairly undeveloped national park for its size. There's not a whole bunch of roads going through it. And so you kind of need to pick and choose your areas while you're trying to explore this national park. You're not going to be able to see it all. It's hours of driving between the different sections of this park. And so you'll want to really dial into how much time you have and how far you can get with that amount of time. Okay, so looking at a map of Utah, you've got Salt Lake City up here. You've got your Utah national parks are kind of all in this area. Canyonlands is down here by Moab. And so you'll see here's the town of Moab. We've got Arches National Park right there. And then Canyonlands is all down in here. Now, what a lot of people don't realize as they're trying to get into Canyonlands is that Canyonlands is divided into 3 different sections. So you've got the Island in the Sky section, which is the most popular section of Canyonlands, this one right here. You can see you've got a river here, you've got a river here. This is the Colorado, this is the green. And Island in the Sky is more of a plateau and the rivers have carved around it. So you're up above looking down into these river canyons. So that's the Island in the Sky district. That is the most popular district to visit in Canyonlands National Park. It's the most accessible. It's the closest to Moab. You'll just drive around here and explore in here. It has the most pavement for driving on pavement. And so that's the Island in the Sky. Now, the second district that you'll want to be aware of is down here. That's the Needles district. And so to get here, you're driving south of Moab. It takes about an hour and a half or so to get from Moab all the way in here to the Needles district. And this district is it's a lower elevation. It's more on the ground looking up. So you can see Island in the Sky in the distance. You can see those cliff faces that those canyons are surrounding. But when you're down in the Needles, you're looking more at hoodoo type formations, kind of more similar to Bryce Canyon. You're down hiking among the canyons and the slots and all of that. That's what the Needles mostly is. I love the Needles. That's by far my favorite part of Canyonlands National Park. It's a little bit harder to get to than the Island in the Sky, but it's so cool. So that one is better for hikers though. If you don't like to hike, the Needles might not be for you because the Needles is mostly big, longer hikes where you're just like kind of out exploring in the wilds of Canyonlands all day on these longer hikes. So that's why I love it, because it's really easy to get away from people. You can do these longer trails, see super cool stuff, but then just feel like you're in the middle of nothing, like you're exploring and discovering this area for the first time. It's a really cool feeling. Okay, and then we have the Maze District, and that's this area over here. The maze is only accessible via high clearance 4-wheel drive roads. It's really hard to get to. It costs thousands of dollars to get you out of here if you get stuck. And so this is not an area that the casual Canyonlands visitor is going to want to come to. You're not even going to want to consider this one. This is for people who are very experienced in the backcountry and who have the right equipment to get back in here and potentially spend days back here at a time without seeing other people. So those are the 3 Canyonlands districts. And then you've got the rivers that go through, which you can raft. You can enjoy those as basically their own separate ecosystem. So that's really cool. Okay, phew, that's the most important thing to understand about Canyonlands as you're planning your trip, those various districts, and you can't drive between them. There's no roads that connect them because the rivers are bisecting everything through that area, and the elevation changes are really dramatic. So you're going to want to, as you're trying to plan your time in Canyonlands, decide which districts you have time for, which districts, best suit what you're hoping to do while you're in Canyonlands. Okay, so then how do you get to Canyonlands National Park? Again, if you're planning a trip to Arches, then this will apply for both parks. If you're hoping to fly into this area, there is a small airport in Moab, and so you can do that if you want to. It usually connects from bigger airports like Denver or Salt Lake City. You can fly into Salt Lake City. That's very common. A lot of people fly into Salt Lake City or Las Vegas to go around all 5 Utah parks and kind of explore the southern part of Utah that way. So that's very common. Denver is a little bit further out, but you are on the Colorado side of Utah. You're pretty close to Colorado from here. So a smaller airport like Grand Junction is not that far away either. So there's a few options. Typically, most people fly into Salt Lake City or Vegas to get to this area. And then you just road trip through all the beautiful Utah scenery. The best time to visit Canyonlands is, so Canyonlands, it has a pretty long season. It stays mostly open year round. So if you plan a trip during the off season, which for this park is typically somewhere around like November through February, kind of, in there, the off season is usually still pretty okay for getting out and exploring things. This park does get snow, particularly in the Island in the Sky district. You will sometimes see some snowstorms coming through during the winter months. And so keep that in mind. I do really love the off season in this area. It's pretty cool to be in these parks when it's a lot quieter. So Arches, same season, it's kind of nice to be over in both of these places kind of during the off season. But you will hit some closures. So for example, in the Needles, the visitor center is totally closed during a few of those winter months. And so that would also make you need to be much more aware of, your surroundings and your abilities as you're, out there without any visitor center support. There are still a couple rangers in that area, but it's going to be a lot quieter. So keep that in mind. The Island in the Sky does stay open year round. It's a little bit more of a busier part of the park, and so you will have some other people that you'll see. The visitor center stays open just on shortened hours, stuff like that. So sometimes the weather isn't super ideal during those off months. Where I like to really visit these parks is kind of right on the shoulder seasons, not quite dead of winter, but I'm talking like September, October, March, April, kind of somewhere in there. Tends to be really nice, a little less busy. You can still pretty much do everything. You're avoiding the super hot summers that come in this area. So that's a big deal for me. I don't like hiking in the heat. And it can be 100+ degrees easily in Moab during the summer months. So also extending into the Arches and Canyonlands areas as well. So keep that in mind. But again, main season for this park is typically sometime around March to April into October, November. Now, something that's really important to understand is that this national park is, greatly at the whims of Mother Nature. Things are changing all the time. Things are opening, closing, temporary closures, construction, all sorts of stuff going on in this national park. So because of that, I highly recommend picking up the Canyonlands Itinerary on Dirt in My Shoes. I will link it below this video. But with this itinerary, I walk you through everything you need to know, where to stay, what to do, how to avoid the crowds, how to not have to circle parking lots, and just how to make the most of your trip to Canyonlands. That itinerary is linked below this video, so go check it out. That's where I just walk you through everything. It's so nice. You don't even have to think about all this stuff. I take care of it for you. Okay, so now that you've determined the best time to visit, when you want to be in this park, let's talk about how many days Canyonlands needs. So again, I'm realistic because I know that typically most people who come to the Moab area are coming for Arches National Park. That is by far the more visited national park in this area. It's the more popular one. It's the one that everybody knows about and wants to see. So again, Canyonlands tends to kind of be an afterthought for Arches. And I would say for, a very long time, Canyonlands was super quiet compared to Arches. Now, when you go to Canyonlands, you will still be in the crowds. It's now getting pretty busy. The entrance station lines can be an hour, hour and a half long if you go at the wrong time. So again, another reason to pick up the Canyonlands Itinerary on Dirt in My Shoes so I can walk you through how to avoid stuff like that. So more people are coming to Canyonlands and enjoying Canyonlands at the same time during the same visit as Arches. So then to answer the question about how many days to spend in Canyonlands, if you are kind of treating it more as we mostly want to see Arches, but maybe we should pop into Canyonlands while we're here, then you're really only going to need 1 day in this park. So you'll focus in on the Island in the Sky District. That's the easiest one to get to from Arches National Park and the Moab area. And so you'll just need a day to go up there. You'll drive around. You can hike to Mesa Arch. You can see all the beautiful viewpoints. You can spend a really enjoyable day up there on the Island in the Sky. If you can give yourself another day in Canyonlands National Park, so you have 2 full days in Canyonlands, then I would absolutely add in the Needles for that second day. I, again, just love the Needles District. It's so cool. It's amazing to get out there and hike. You don't have to be hiking all day if you want to. There's definitely places where you can just go and start a trail and really get the spirit of Canyonlands and how wild and rugged it is, and then just turn around so that you don't have to be out there exploring all day long. But I highly recommend doing this. And so if you can give yourself 2 full days in Canyonlands so that you can spend 1 day at Island in the Sky and 1 day at the Needles, you will be so happy with that decision. So then that leads into where should you stay while visiting Canyonlands National Park? And again, that is going to depend on which district of Canyonlands you're hoping to visit. So let's pull up the map and I can kind of talk you through this. Okay, so for most people, it's going to make sense to stay in the Moab area. There's so many options in this area. You can be right in downtown Moab. You can go along some of these side roads here where there's good camping. You can even go down south of Moab, closer to the Spanish Valley, where you'll find a lot of Airbnbs and stuff like that. And so tons of options here in this section of the state. So that makes it really easy to just stay in the same place and pop up into Arches for a day. And then you can pop up into Island in the Sky for a day. Now, if you're wanting to be more like this trip is about Canyonlands, I want to be closer to the things in Canyonlands, a couple more options here. So Canyonlands, the Island in the Sky, has a campground. So you can stay in that campground right here up in this district. You also have this side road over here that takes you to Dead Horse Point State Park. And this is a really awesome state park. It's one of the best that we have here in Utah. And in my Canyonlands One Day itinerary, I walk you through when to add this in. So it is included as something that's definitely worthwhile during your day at the Island in the Sky. But Dead Horse Point State Park has some yurts you can stay in. It also has some camping options as well. So if you want to stay up there on the plateau, you want to be really close to the Island in the Sky district, then those are a couple of other really great options for you. Now, when we're talking about the Needles, it gets a little bit more tricky. And so if you're just planning on spending one day in the Needles, like you just want to pop down there and you want to hike a few trails and kind of see what it's about, then it's okay to still stay up here in Moab and just recognize that you're going to have a pretty long drive down to the Needles. But the thing about the Needles is it's a pretty long drive from anywhere. So if you're coming from Moab, that's just fine. Just, get up early enough that you can get in here at a good time so that you can, spend the day out on the trail and really get to know the Needles section of the park. Your other option for the Needles is if we go down here, you want to stay a little bit closer to the Needles, then you can stay down here in the town of Monticello. It's not Monticello, it's Monticello to Utahns. So, but we're staying down in Monticello, and then you can see it is a shorter drive to this access road to get you out to the Needles from there compared to Moab. You're still looking at a fairly long drive, though, 45 minutes or so to get into the park from Monticello. What's cool about staying in Monticello, though, is from here, you're closer down to like Blanding and Bluff. You're closer to Bears Ears. You're actually pretty close to Mesa Verde, which is down in this area. And so we stay in Monticello plenty of times, especially if we know we're mostly going to hike in the Needles during our trip to Canyonlands. Sometimes we'll do like a night or two up in Moab to do Island in the Sky and Arches. Then we'll come down to Monticello to do the Needles and some of the other cool stuff around there. The Needles also has a really nice campground. So if you want to camp and you want to stay in the Needles district of Canyonlands, you can do so by camping in that campground. Okay, so that's really like the nitty gritty of trip planning to Canyonlands. Again, just keeping in mind that those different districts are pretty spread out and you can't get between them from within the national park. You need to drive around. So it is a little bit more driving, but again, totally worth it to get to both the Island in the Sky and the Needles districts. Just mind-blowing, beautiful scenery the whole way. Now I want to walk you through some of the fun things that you can do in Canyonlands, things that you can look forward to, some of my favorite activities. So let's jump in and talk about the cool things that you can do in this park. First, if you go to dirtinmyshoes.com and click on Canyonlands, I have a whole bunch of articles here, podcast episodes, things like that, to help you really get excited about visiting Canyonlands National Park. So definitely check that out. I'll link it in the video description below. You can see White Rim Road if you have an extra day in Canyonlands, some of my favorite trails. All of that is here on Dirt in My Shoes. So check that out and watch my other Canyonlands videos for even more information. All right, so for the Island in the Sky district, you can see you have basically two paved roads. You have the road coming in that goes all the way out here to Grand Viewpoint. And there's stuff to do all along this. And so some of the things you definitely won't want to miss are Mesa Arch. Mesa Arch is super popular. It's a gorgeous arch just perched above the canyon rim. You have gorgeous views of the canyons from behind the arch. Really cool hike. It's short, it's easy. Most people can do it. So that's a definite can't miss. You also have the Murphy Point Trail, which I love. I absolutely love that one. And then when you get down to the end of the road, you've got Grand View Point, where you can just get those expansive views of the canyons of Canyonlands. Your other paved road over here is going to take you out to some overlooks. You've got the Green River overlook. You've got the campground, Aztec Buttes, really cool trail. I love that one too. All the way to the end of Upheaval Dome, where you'll find just some really unique geologic forces at work here. And so that's really cool. Be sure to stop at some of the overlooks as well so that you can really soak in those Canyonlands views. Those are like the quintessential Canyonlands views where you're looking at the rivers below with the canyons in the distance. So there's a lot of viewpoints that you can hit as you're driving both of those roads. For the most part, that is the Island in the Sky district. I mentioned the White Rim Road, which is a 90+ mile dirt road that goes actually one level down from where you're driving in the Island in the Sky. So not all the way down to the rivers, but you've got this white rim layer that the road travels on. You do need a permit to do this road, and it is a very big undertaking. So I do have information on Dirt in My Shoes of how you can make it a day trip. But basically, you're driving down the Schaefer Trail here, which is super impressive, really cool stretch of road, and then making your way along the White Rim Road over here. I also mentioned Dead Horse Point State Park. So again, you can see that's fairly close to the Island in the Sky. So you'll want to drive over there at some point while you're up here as well and enjoy the gorgeous views of this bend in the river, the Colorado River here, that's just absolutely stunning. And so it's definitely worth spending an hour or two here as well. So again, where the Island in the Sky is more an emphasis on the overlooks because you're looking down on things, you're looking down on the river, you're looking down on the canyons. The Needles does feel quite different from this. So looking at the map of the Needles, you've got the Island in the Sky up here. And remember, you have to drive all the way around and come into the Needles down here. And again, not very much pavement here in this part, even less than there is in the Island in the Sky. So as you're coming in, you'll pass the visitor center. You've got like Cave Spring and Wooden Shoe Arch and the roadside ruins, which are all in here. And then you've got this road that kind of curves up here. It takes you to a couple of nice hiking trails like Pothole Point and the Slick Rock Trail. And then that road just kind of dead ends right there. And then you're looking down in some canyons. You're still above the rivers at this point, but you're not as high as you are in the Island in the Sky. So where the real magic comes in with the Needles is actually leaving the pavement for a minute and driving out to the Elephant Hill Trailhead. So you can see that road marked here. It's a narrow road. It is dirt, but it's usually in fairly good condition. So you can drive out here, and this is where you're going to hit the trail, and you can see just this whole network of trails back in here. It's spectacular. It's amazing. So a couple of my favorites from the Elephant Hill Trailhead are to hike all the way out to Druid Arch, which is out here. Druid Arch is taller than Delicate Arch in arches. It is incredibly impressive. It's a hike to get out here for sure. But oh my gosh, it is one of the coolest arches you'll ever see. The other trail that's really popular out here is the Chesler Park Trail. So this is Chesler Park out here. And so you're starting that same trail as you would to go to Druid Arch, but then you're going to cut off and then you can hike around Chesler Park. You can catch the Joint Trail, which is a trail that's super cool, goes through a little slot canyon there, and then loop your way around and then come back out. So either the Druid Arch Trail or the Chesler Park Trail, both of those are about 10 to 11 miles, kind of in that range. It is a big undertaking to hike one of those trails, but it is so cool. One of my just absolute favorite ways to spend any time in the national parks is to hike. And in the Needles, that's where that really shines. That's where you get to see some super cool stuff. You'll notice some of these dotted lines over here. These are off-roading. These are jeeping trails basically. And so you've got to have a high clearance four-wheel drive vehicle to get back in here with some experience. There's another one over here. So that's pretty typical in the Needles. You've got people either just hiking really long trails back in here or doing some, some dirt roading back through this whole area. One more thing I want to mention that you don't want to miss is as you're driving along this highway here to get into the Needles, you will pass by Newspaper Rock. Newspaper Rock is a huge slab of sandstone that just has petroglyphs all over it. It's incredibly impressive, so make sure you don't miss that when you're down here in the Needles. Okay, so you made it to almost the end of this trip planning session. Hopefully that answers most of your questions. Couple more things you're going to want to think about just here as we're wrapping up. The first being that there's really not very much running water, drinking water in Canyonlands National Park. You can get it at the visitor centers, and that's pretty much it. So make sure that you have a ton of water with you in your vehicle. Make sure that you just don't assume that any trailhead is going to have it, because they won't. I can tell you right now, you're not going to find water as you're out exploring in this national park. So you need to bring most of it with you. And that's critical because, again, this national park can get into, the 90 plus degree temperatures during the summer months, especially, and it gets really hot. Dehydration is a big thing that you're going to want to try to avoid while you're out here. Heat stroke, make sure you're wearing the right clothes, make sure you have sunscreen. Really pay attention to that, because when you're hiking out in the high desert here, you're going to get easily fatigued. You're going to feel that heat. There's not a lot of shade. So just make sure you keep that in mind as you're packing your stuff. Be prepared for that. There are bathrooms. Most of them are pit toilets because, again, no running water. It is a very wild and rugged park. So just be prepared for those pit toilet stops. You're not going to have any fancy amenities here. And on that note, no in-park restaurants, nothing like that, no in-park lodges. So you really are at the mercy of just like what they have at the visitor center, which is typically a small gift shop, some toilets, some drinking water, and that's about it for amenities in Canyonlands. So it will feel different probably than a lot of the national parks you've gone to, which, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is what makes Canyonlands so special. It feels really rugged and wild and free, and you're just out there exploring and discovering and feeling like you're seeing things that no human has ever seen before. When you're hiking out in the desert, also keep in mind you need to stay on the trail so that you're not crunching that cryptobiotic soil. This is a living organism. It's basically a crust on top of the soil that grows. It takes hundreds of years to grow, and it really provides a lot of nutrients to the creatures that live here in the desert. So don't bust the crust. Make sure you're not stepping on it, touching it, ruining it in any way. Stay on those trails so that you can preserve this beautiful desert landscape. One other thing you'll notice in Canyonlands when you're out hiking is there are a lot of cairns in this hike. That's those stacks of rocks that we use for route finding in the desert. So a lot of times you're hiking on the slick rock and they can't make trails through the rock, and so you're just hiking on top of the rock. It can be easy to lose your way. And so we use these cairns, these stacks of rocks, to mark where you're aiming for when you're hiking, where you need to go next. And so especially in the Needles, a lot of the trails you'll do out there, you're looking for the next cairn before you're moving forward on the trail. You just need to be able to use those for route finding. So one big thing about this, a lot of people don't realize when they're in an area like this or a landscape like this, is that it could be life or death for someone if you build your own cairns or if you knock other cairns down that are needed for route finding. So please do not touch the cairns. Please do not build your own, because somebody could follow that and get off course and get lost out in this rugged and wild wilderness. So there you go. There's all the information you need to know about Canyonlands. Thank you for sticking with me through this video. I know it's a lot, but you will be so much better prepared for this park. You're going to have just a great time. I'm so excited for you. And again, be sure to subscribe to my channel if you found this helpful. I'll have other Canyonlands videos forthcoming, a lot of information here, plus the Dirt in My Shoes website. You'll find a lot of information there as well. So I hope that you have an amazing time in Canyonlands National Park, and happy trails.